so good. You really need to. But if you're one of those like, I don't read type people, don't worry, I'm gonna go over some of my favorite points from the book today. At first, the book seems a little bit trite or basic almost, and I'm like, okay, I've heard this. And then by the end, I was like, oh wow, the ideas are very potent and they really stick with you. And I really think there are some creative, interesting tips in the book. Page 365, this is one of my very favorite ideas that I read in this book. He writes, we don't have to know why something is good or wonder if it's the right decision or if it reflects us accurately. It is simply the light our prism emits naturally at this moment in time. Basically, don't question what comes to you. Don't question if your art is smart enough, interesting enough, too weird, too cartoony, too simple, whatever it may be. It's reflective of your inner world, and that is valuable in itself. And if it's slightly different from your past work, that's okay too. It doesn't have to match perfectly. I remember listening to a podcast interview one day with an artist, and she was talking about how she used to try to say a lot of things in her art and, make really smart, interesting art. And then she was like, you know what? Now I just want to paint flowers. I think flowers are so radical and they're like a form of resistance. I just paint it. I don't worry if it makes me look a certain way or sound a certain way or come off a certain way, if it's right or wrong. I just paint the pretty flower because I like it, Your job is just to be a vessel for the creation and to make things. Page 171, we're talking about demo-itis, which is a very interesting concept. So another challenge we might call demo-itis. Demo-itis happens when the artist has clung too tightly for too long to their first draft. The danger of living with the unfinished project for too long is that the more often an artist is exposed to a particular draft of a work, the more final that form can become in their mind. A musician might record a demo of a song very quickly. They could listen to it thousands of times and imagine developing it to all it could be. Yet when it comes time to actually make the best version of that song, the demo may be so ingrained in their head that any changes to it seem blasphemous. When we become overly attached to a premature version of the work, we do a disservice to the project's potential. I really relate to this with YouTube videos. I kind of take a while to make videos just because I don't have time. So by the time I'm finally finishing it, like after a week or two of slowly editing it, I'm really ready to be done. And instead of adding all the bits and bobs and flares and touches at the end, sometimes I will just kind of okay, it's done. I'm used to this version. It's fine. I settle for the mediocrity and I upload it, I think this can really do a disservice to our work. So something Rick recommends is when you're not actively working on the thing to make it better, really step away and don't obsess about it or look at it or show it to anyone or watch it or anything like that. With painting, when I'm done painting for the day, I will leave the room. I don't look at the painting anymore. I don't keep staring at it and wondering. I go away, and then the next day I come in, I have fresh eyes and I can actually see the painting as if I was a stranger almost. Not exactly, but as close to it as possible. That way I don't fall in love with the demo idea and I leave room for edits and, improvements. Page 158, it's all about testing all of the ideas and not judging them. Ask yourself as many what if questions as you can. What if this were the first painting anyone ever saw in their life? Or what if I removed every adverb? What if I made all of the loud parts quiet? Look for different polarities and see how they affect the piece. Perhaps take on the temporary rule that there are no bad ideas. Test them all, even the ones that seem underwhelming or unlikely to work. I'm a big fan of silly prompts or constraints in art. I think that there is so much noise, and in order to actually focus, it can be helpful just to test random ideas that you think may not work or may be dumb or too weird or whatever. I think having that starting place, like a prompt or a constraint, such as a limited palette in painting, or you open a book to a random page and find a word and that's what you're gonna base your art off that day. Something like that is just a fun way to liven up your practice. So try all of the ideas without judgment. Page 116. We can't force greatness to happen. All we can do is invite it in and await it actively. not anxiously as this might scare it off, simply in a state of continual welcoming. To me, this really sums up the idea of relaxing and not holding on to perfection so much that we push it away and we put so much pressure on ourselves. Taking ourselves so seriously will tear our projects down and just tear our confidence down. Having a sense of wonder about our own ideas, like almost as if someone else is handing it to us, like, oh, that's interesting, let me try it out. I don't have to hold on to it so tightly and hope it's gonna be my best work, And creating an environment where ideas can come, taking a lot of photos for references, having a notebook with you, and just keeping your eyes open for visual cues and inspiration, and just kind of creating a state of art all the time. Next, we're on page 193, and we're talking about a difficult topic, which is criticism. If someone chooses to share feedback, listen to understand the person, not the work. People will tell you more about themselves than about the art when giving feedback. We each see a unique world. This was a good reminder to me that art critiques coming from non-art critics, such as friends or family or people online, should be taken lightly, with a grain of salt. Honestly, even critiques from art critics as well. Like, we all see the world so differently, and we all have very different tastes when it comes to art. Like, obviously there's a baseline of like foundational elements, like what colors look good together, how to build a painting or a song or whatever. But outside of that, a lot of it is just preference. It's just that, preference. I think it's important to listen to the advice of only the people that you really respect and who have similar art as you, maybe. And the rest of it, take it very lightly. If you like some of their critiques, you can take pieces and use those in the future. But a lot of it you can kind of just say thanks and toss to the side and just understand where the person's coming from, not necessarily what they're saying about your art, because we all are carrying baggage and it says a lot more about us, what we're saying, than about the actual art. We are hopping right over to page 318, and we're talking about meaning. Deciding what to say in advance doesn't allow whatever is best to come. Meaning is assigned once an inspired idea is followed through. It's best to wait until a work is complete to discover what it is saying. Holding your work hostage to meaning is a limitation. Works that attempt to overtly preach a message often don't connect as hoped, while a piece not intended to address a societal ill may become an anthem for a revolutionary cause. Art is far more powerful than our plans for it. I read this book a few months ago, so I'm just being reminded of how many bangers there are in here, and this one really hit me deep. I think as a beginner artist, I always felt like I had to, say something and like have a deep message, whether it was about like feminism or heartbreak or childhood trauma or like some, big message in the world. Like, I just always felt like I had to contribute in that way. And now when I paint, I pull from so many places, and I don't really try to have like a pithy message or concise idea. I just pull from so much in my life, and I feel like it's subjective at the end. Like, I don't need to have this perfect box with a bow type idea. Just by being a human and like living your life, your humanity will automatically shine through your art. Even if you're just painting like a landscape or a flower or a face, you will shine through, especially like over a body of work. We inject ourselves into it without trying. So it's better not to overly push down a message. I just think it's a lot less boring when the artist doesn't force that message onto you blatantly. So in your practice, I think a way to work around this is not just to have like one inspiration for your art, and to also not question what you're drawn to. Like, if you're drawn to a pretty flower, that is amazing. You don't have to be drawn to some like important message that's gonna save the world. We're over on page 333 now. Consider your craft as an energy alive in you. It's just as much a part of the cycle of evolution as other living things are. It wants to grow, it wants to flower. To hone your craft is to hone creation. It doesn't matter if you become the best in your field. By practicing to improve, You are fulfilling your ultimate purpose on this planet. Again, I'm just so inspired by these words. I think Rick Rubin does a wonderful job in this book at really reiterating in so many different ways that you don't need to be the best artist to have a fulfilling art journey. We make art because we have to. It's in our soul, it's in our DNA, and it needs to come out. It's not because we are trying to be the very best. And that's fine if you want to be the best as well, but I think just striving to be better every day and to show up every day is so fulfilling in itself. And that is really why we do it. And that's what we're going to cherish over time. And by simply focusing on the craft and the journey, doors will open up, opportunities will come, and confidence will grow, skill will grow, all those things will come if we just simply focus on flourishing and watering the garden of art. 354. The best ideas arise most often and easily through this relaxed state. Putting importance on the work too soon stirs up instincts of caution. Instead, we want to break free of the shackles of reality and avoid all forms of creative restraint. Feel free to experiment, make messes, embrace randomness. When playtime is over, our adult aspect might come in to analyze, what did the kids make today? I wonder if it's any good and what could it mean? Each day is about showing up, building things, breaking them down, experimenting, and surprising ourselves. If a 4-year-old loses interest in an activity, they don't try to complete it or force themselves to have fun with it. They just shift gears to a new quest, another form of play. Some aspects of the work can get tedious. In these moments, can you re-engage with the spirit of the process from early on? To me, this is really about keeping that childlike wonder in the forefront of, the creation process and really prioritizing play. I once heard advice that you shouldn't really think about selling the work or even posting about it while you're creating. You should really hone in on that play and that wonder and that experimentation phase and really tune everything else out until you're finished with the work. Once you're finished, you can think about, okay, where am I gonna post this? Are we gonna sell it? Are we gonna make prints? What does it mean? All of that, but the business side. But before that, it should really just be like, let's make a mess today. Let's have fun. And I think this goes along with embracing and being okay with and expecting to make bad work sometimes. And I just think we're a lot more free to create. And then that's where we find our masterpieces, is when we aren't so, tied to the outcome. Page 41. Look for what you notice, but no one else sees. Is there anything that you're drawn to in your art that feels like it's not portrayed very often, or that you have this weird obsession with that no one else sees the beauty in? I think that can actually be a huge superpower. And that's what Rick is saying. He's saying, what do you see that no one else does? What ideas are you drawn to, or subject matter, or colors? What do you see that you don't see very much of out in the world, in the art world? Sometimes you see something hiding in plain sight, and that can be incredibly moving to focus on. For a while, I got obsessed with painting sidewalks, and I just thought there was something so interesting and kind of magical about how sidewalks cover our world, literally cover the planet. And they're man-made, but they're like something we use to travel with and connect us to places. What is something that you think about, or that you're obsessed with, that is a little bit weird or quirky, or no one else is really talking about it? That is where you need to go and make art about. Thank you so much for being here today. I've really enjoyed spending time with you. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And I'd love to see you again soon. So have a wonderful day and happy creating. Bye.